The WA Museum's collection is so massive, it's displayed in 6 museums across the state. So what are we doing here? Well, 6 museums isn't even enough to show it all. This is the Collection and Research Centre, and not only are there so many treasures stored in here, there's also some pretty clever people doing some very clever things. This is like the WA Museum's own CSI unit. Take Dr. Mikhail Severson, for instance. He's a paleontologist in the Earth and Planetary Sciences Department, and he's an expert on fish across the ages. It's the sort of knowledge that has some surprisingly contemporary applications. Dr. Mikhail, obviously sharks are in the news at the moment, and when there is an attack, it must be incredibly important to find out what type of species is responsible. How do you do that?
Well, when we talk about sharks, we take advantage of the fact that we can actually, in most cases, identify the species of shark by just looking at the teeth. Teeth in sharks, they are unique for each species. So if someone comes and shows me a tooth, in most cases I can tell them what species it is. So it's very important that we get at least a fragment of the tooth for identification, and also we can determine, in some cases, the size of the shark involved in attack, for example.
Down the corridor are birds, thousands of them in drawers because they're stuffed. Ron Johnston is the curator of ornithology, and you might think he fills his day cataloguing and managing this huge collection, but actually his job is much more far-reaching than that. So Ron, a lot of what you must do is all about protecting WA species, but to do that you must have to keep an eye on what's coming in from outside the state.
That's right. Our role actually is to look not only at all the resident species that occur in Western Australia, but also all of the migrants that come in, and there are tens of thousands of Palearctic migrants that winter every year in Australia. But also apart from those, and we have in this tray a couple of interesting examples, each of these specimens gives us a great amount of information on the avian traffic, if you like, between Australia and not only Indonesia, but all of Southeast Asia, and the possibility of, in some cases, of some of these getting established.
For the curators in the Department of Anthropology and Archaeology, it's medical imaging equipment that's sometimes needed to identify an acquisition. Well, Dr. Smith, we've got 2 mummies here, but how do you actually know what's inside?
Unless you unwrap them, which we don't advocate anymore, the best way of understanding what's inside them is to CT scan them or to X-ray them in some form. It's a wonderful resource, and it is that great thing that it does mean you don't have to destroy the object to find out what's inside it, which you used to have to do.
Have you ever had any surprises?
Had an enormous surprise with this poor little cat, which for decades delighted people of Perth as a famous Egyptian cat mummy. When we did X-ray it, we found inside it fragments of a human long bone, fragments of a femur, and another little bone on top. So it's like a not cat, regrettably.
As you can see, the identification of species happens in all sorts of ways, and the displays that you and I enjoy are the end result of a lot of hard work happening right here in the WA Museum's own CSI unit, the Collection and Research Centre.